Well, Crespatrick, thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Thank you for having me, Roger. Yeah, I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
great to meet you in person. I know we've talked via email, but
Hmm.
yeah, just great to meet you. I've checked out your clothing, your
Yeah,
fashion design, and I love everything about it. I think you have such a cool contemporary style.
man. Thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, was fashion design something that was always in you, or were you creative when you were young? Like, where did your creative passion start early
Yeah.
in life?
I would say yes and no. I did not grow up in a creative household or a creative community. There was creativity definitely that we participated in, but as far as like clothing wise, I always loved clothes.
Hmm.
I can just remember just early memories as a kid. I was always concerned with what I wanted to wear. Um, and early on, I just started wanting to pick out my outfits and things like that, and didn't really see it as creativity, and no one marked it as creativity. I had some other siblings who would be into clothing too, but not so much as as myself. Um, and I'm Filipino. I grew up in a Filipino household, so singing and dancing was something we always did, but it was more for the fun of it and the entertainment of it, and not as like some sort of creative pursuit or something to really dive deeper in.
Hmm.
But a lot of my creativity did start there with fun. I think that's where all creativity should start with. It's like, this is fun and I want to keep doing it. And then we dive deeper into it. But it wasn't probably a lot later in my life, in my probably late 20s, I really tapped into my creativity. I think before then, I wouldn't even really consider myself a creative.
Hmm.
Um, it came a lot through spirituality, through, I believe in God and I have this relationship there with Him. And I think a lot of that, finding myself in Him, really brought about this creativity in me. And I started to see things differently. A lot of things just changed for me. My whole perspective changed. And I really started to tap into creativity. But yeah, it wasn't until I was like 27, 28 that that really started to bubble up in me.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the song and dance thing, that's interesting that it was organic in the family. So if it was around
Yeah.
you all the time growing up in sort of a natural part of life and not necessarily treated like, oh, that's like a creative thing or that's like an art expression.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. Like it builds this sort of almost like natural aspect to it or
Yeah.
organic aspect to it.
Yeah. I think, without knowing subconsciously, it was like I was being primed for it.
Hmm.
And where these things, these expressions, um, were a bit normalized to me, even though it wasn't in a way to pursue it as a career or to further it in any way or deepen it. But it was there, and I was used to expressing in these kind of different ways that maybe most people don't usually express. Um, Especially in dance. I think dance is something that still is an inspiration to me. Even how I create, I'm on like, can I dance in this if I wanted to? If I was at a party and a dance circle broke out, could I feel like I could just hop in and just start dancing? So
Yeah,
that's something I think about.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
And when you think about dance and music, I always found those two forms to be very interesting. I mean, one, music is such an expression of cultural origin at times.
Hmm.
It's an expression of personal experience at times,
Yeah,
sometimes spirituality, which I'm sure
for sure.
you could speak to. And then dance on top of it is almost becomes this like connection, enjoyment, all these
Hmm.
things wrapped up in it. And
Yeah.
it's the same for music. When you think back to your young age and experiencing those things organically early on, how did it inform where you went with dance professionally?
I think so much goes back to a feeling with music, with dance, even with clothing. It's like things capture us immediately that bring emotion. And for me, just seeing dance, especially hip hop, I remember just being exposed to like b-boying, breakdancing for the first time and seeing that. Um, it was like a movie. Like a friend just brought me out. It was in high school, freshman year in high school, and he was just like, "Yo, I want to show you something." And all these kids were just breakdancing in like the hallway, and then like a battle broke out, and I was like, "What is this?" Before then, I was just exposed to like, Michael Jackson, a lot of just choreography, boy bands, things like that. But then to see it in just such a raw form like that, marked me forever. And so I think it was always just going back to like this feeling, like hip hop and this sort of dance and this expression and the aggressiveness of it, or the end, like the flows of like the smoothness, like the swagger that's in it. It's like it's a way to feel something. Either feel something you can play pretend and feel something that you're actually not, or it can just further enhance a feeling that you have, or it's a way to just like release certain emotions. So, that music, that style of music, I think hip hop has done. I think there's no other genre that's really, it's like hip hop has its own art form with graffiti, has its own dance expression with like b-boying and hip hop choreography. And then it has its own clothing with streetwear. And I'm like, what other genre has really done that? And then like exploded on this global level that's like infused culture like to every corner. And so I was, first time just being exposed to that genre, I was just like, I want to be part of this. So that's kind of how I got into dancing and was just like wanted to continue it. Um, so yeah, that was fun.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And what time in your life was that? So when you were working as a dancer?
I was like early 20s. I moved to LA when I was 20, was dancing on my early, mid into my late 20s. And then kind of late 20s is when I knew I didn't want to be in that world forever. I didn't want to climb that ladder of choreography and just like artistic director and creative director in that type of world. I knew it was like, I just like to dance, but I knew I wasn't going to do it forever. So I went to fashion school out in LA, found out about fashion school, and knew I was like, oh, I think this could be a great path for me. But I didn't even know about fashion school. I was like, I had a friend who was studying fashion design at FITM in LA, and I was like, that's a thing? Like, you can go to school? There's a college to learn about fashion and learn how to make clothes? Kind of blew my mind. So I was like, and that's when I like entered that and then kind of transitioned into that in like my late 20s.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And it sounded to me like too from a young age, fashion was always an interest, and
Hmm.
you found a way to formalize it,
Yeah.
essentially that path, which I think is interesting. Sometimes you don't always get those opportunities. I feel like in the creative industry to
Yeah,
formalize your education and start to align some things.
for sure.
What was that experience like once, knowing that you had a passion for it? There's a whole universe of it
Hmm.
in hip hop culture,
Hmm.
and you had experienced that, and you're coming out of that scene. What was it like to then go to fashion school and start to formalize the practice?
It was interesting because even like bringing those two worlds together wasn't, I mean, I was thinking about it, but it wasn't as clear as it is today. Because even then, like, I was in school, I think 2009 to 2011. I was very much into streetwear, but it wasn't a big trend at the time. And usually I almost would dress very differently. I would go when I would dance or take class or do things, I would be in my streetwear clothes. I was, in my sneakers, very baggy hoodies and shorts and stuff. I would dance in. But then the trends at the time were very, this was like this hashtag menswear era where people were wanting to wear suits and
Hmm.
a very tailored look. So I would go back and forth between those worlds, not knowing yet how they can merge. But I was already thinking, I was like, how do I incorporate, if I wanted to do a runway show one day, how do I incorporate this like dance into presenting clothing? But school was crazy, man. Like it was just a 2-year program, but they crammed like 4 years worth of information
Mhm.
into 2 years. So it was, and I was still dancing at the time. So I was trying to balance, trying to go auditions and book jobs and be in school and study and learn. But it was the first time I was outside of dance. I was really passionate about something. I was never passionate about school. I just got by. Didn't fail anything, but just got by. I didn't care about learning until fashion. And I cared about learning. I was like, I want to learn it all. Even just like history classes and math classes. I want to learn it. It's like part of this. I'm trying to do my best. So it awakened curiosity in me like it hadn't been awaken before, and it started to awaken just like creativity and certain disciplines that I hadn't practiced before. And then it was further down the line of just like merging these two artistic worlds of mine together.
You mentioned spirituality being an important part of the process for you, at least it's a part of the growth process that
Yeah,
you
yeah,
saw in yourself.
yeah,
Um, what was it about the spiritual experience or spiritual practice
yeah,
being still part of you today that you feel like opened you up to new creative endeavors or to new experiences just in life?
yeah, yeah. Man, I believe like God is the creator of the universe, and essentially, God is the ultimate creative. He's a creative. He cares about art. He cares about creativity. And I've just like learned and continued to learn that like the greatest way to know God is through creating. And I believe that we're made in his image. And part of that is we're made to create, whether it is art or maybe it's like creative strategies or creative business, like, in the art world or other worlds, we're all meant to create.
And then did you grow up in a spiritual household? Was
I
that something
did.
that was, yeah, a part of
Hmm.
you? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My parents, yeah, I was in church my whole life. Church looked a lot different than it does now for me. And then seeing where that led me and that how that informs my creativity, it's a place that I constantly create from. It's a place that I find the most inspiration, and that opens my eyes to different revelations of how I love to create. So yeah, it's like everything to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Hadn't heard it articulated like that before, in parallel. So that's interesting that you bring that up.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for asking.
And then, in dance, one of the things I find so interesting about dance is control over the body
Hmm.
and movement and how precise as a dancer you have to be.
Yeah.
Um, and I've only worked with dancers as a director, so I've never experienced dance in any kind of formal setting. I'm not a dancer. If I go to a party, I'm not out on the dance floor, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
But I'm always in awe of it.
Yeah.
And when I work with professional dancers on camera, it's always something that it just looks so beautiful to me. How did your dance experience, do you feel, inform your fashion experience when you
Mm.
start to consider things like the form and movement of a body?
Yeah, I mean, I think movement plays so much into design, and it's really a growth process of understanding how the body moves, and even like when you're drafting patterns, like things have to be shaped a certain way so like it can function with the body. Even, when you're thinking about the armhole sleeve, like the front curve of an armhole is way different than the back because most of our function moves forward and we don't really move so much backwards. So it's not as curved in the back and it's a lot more curved in the front. Because dancers, they seek to reach the potential of movement. Like, how far can my body move? How much can my body move? In what different ways can I expand my body to reach its potential of movement? And with clothing, I would say most people love to feel unrestricted in clothing. That's when people are the most comfortable. Of course, we wear certain things that are a bit more restricting. A woman is in a little black dress or a man is in a suit. Oftentimes when they get home, they want to change into something a lot more comfortable. Like, I want to be able to move and not feel restricted. And so with that, knowing that like I love to move, I love to feel comfortable. I want to feel confident in what I'm wearing. And also I think about, could I feel like at any moment if I wanted to dance, I could dance in this, but also look presentable to walk into like, an art showing.
Hmm.
And it's like, how do I create something like that? It's almost this feeling like, how do I create clothes that can hold this confidence and this swagger and this functionality that I want to feel? And it's like knowing that, because I'm not a professional dancer anymore, and it's like not something, even out in public, I'm not, if a dance circle breaks out, I'm probably just gonna watch. Maybe if the right song comes on, it's like, okay, I'm gonna get out there. But I still will love to move. Like, I'm with my wife. I'm like, we just want to dance together. So I want to create clothes that I can move in,
Hmm.
that can breathe, that has movement. But sometimes I also do really love structure. I love I love a piece that when you look at it, it's just like clean lines, structurally sound. It looks strong. Like that's why I love workwear. I create within workwear. And it's like, okay, like the challenge and the creativity is always finding like, how do these worlds come together?
Mhm.
Um, and also being like, my clothes don't have to be the thing I wear every day. Like I'm such a fan of clothing. I'm such a fan of other brands. And I'm like, there's a lot of brands that want to be a one-stop shop and you can buy everything for every part of your life from our brand. And I was like, my brand doesn't need to be that. If it's like I create pieces for certain occasions and certain times, like I'm not going to be creating loungewear or athleisure. And my brand doesn't need to have that division. And if it's clothes that people I make that you wear during certain times and not all the time, like that's okay too.
That's interesting. I love that you brought that up because I feel like a lot of people, when faced with basically where art and commerce meet,
Yeah.
a creative person who's designing something for someone to buy and feel good in. I love that you don't put the extra pressure on yourself like many people do, where you feel like you need to be everything for everyone,
Yeah.
and really just focus on the craft, focus on the things, the styles, the designs that you want to make, and allow that to be a choice for the consumer.
Yeah.
You wear it how you wear it,
Yeah.
once it leaves the shop,
Yeah.
which I think is really cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good that you have that perspective. You can release, it sounds like, and let those things go.
Yeah. I think there's brands and then there's businesses. There's people who get into to clothing to create a business and it can be a great business, you know. I don't think of these big retail chains as brands. I'm like, that's a business and they're making a ton of money
Hmm.
doing what they do, pumping out fast fashion. Or yeah, being a one-stop shop for everybody. And it's like a service too, which I respect. But for me, I'm like, I'm a fan of brands and like I think also too correlating music when we fall in love with the music, it's we fall in love with that artist. Like they wanted to put a message out there. They had something on their heart and their soul that's like, I would just want to put this out there. And I have no idea if it's gonna resonate with people. Like the most classic of artists, they just wanted to put out what was in them and it found its people. I don't think anyone tries to create or trying to create a classic or something that's going to live forever. They just, I think, are just authentic in that moment. And that's how I seek to do my brand is, I just want to create pieces that I like, that I think, and I think there's a lot of other people like me. So I think a lot of other people are going to resonate with it too. And just trusting that it'll find its people in the right time because it is a lot of pressure. It is a hard world when you want to bring your creativity and turn it into commerce and like bringing your creativity and making it into a business. It's tricky. And there's a balance and it's hard and there's a lot of things you got to fight for to protect that creativity.
Hmm.
But I think being able to release things and just being okay if like being honest and authentic rather than trying to achieve some sort of perfection in numbers or those things are important when you run a business,
Right.
but being able to be okay with like, at least I put it out there. Like, at least I put out what I wanted to. And if it didn't resonate with people, that's okay. I mean, it sucks for the business side on things, but for the authentic side of me and the creative of me, like I did it and I put it out there. And
Yeah.
I'm proud of that.
I'm just curious. So you go to fashion school in LA. What brought you to Dallas? Why Dallas, Texas?
My wife is from here. She grew up in Coppell. So she's a project manager. So she was working as a project manager for a brand out there. And we both are really creative and she really enjoys those things too. And we loved LA. I was like, why? No, like, why are we gonna leave? But I mean, it all goes back to spirituality and like my relationship with God. Like my heart changed in an instant one day.
Hmm.
And it was this crazy experience where we were visiting her family out here one Christmas. It was like 2017. And I was admiring, we were downtown going to a coffee shop and I was like at the corner. I was staring at the Wilson building.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what it was. I was just admiring the architecture. I was like, oh, this is a really beautiful building. And I was just like, just standing there staring at it, waiting to cross the street. And all of a sudden, like something came over me, like, oh, this like drip of excitement entered my heart, and then like slowly, it felt like it was like slowly taking over my body, and I just got so curious about the city. I got overwhelmed with excitement about Dallas. I wanted to know everything. I was like, what is this building? Is it an apartment? Is it offices? Like, what's the history of this? Like, what's the creativity like in Dallas? Like, and I never had these thoughts before. I just became overwhelmed with curiosity for Dallas. And I was like, I think we're supposed to move. So we just saved up some money, and like we had a certain goal, like, all right, let's save up this much and like let's hit the road and go. There's so many talented people out here creating incredible things. Um, and I just really fell in love with this town and the people. And I was just so excited to be here and can be able to continue my brand out here. I was like, Dallas is such fertile ground for this. And Texans are so proud. Like, they're proud of everything from here. And I think they just want more things to be proud of, and especially on the creative side. If something creative pops up from here and people resonate with it and it's good, like people want to rally around it. And so it's just been so much support from people out here. Yeah, I love it here. I
Yeah.
love Dallas.
It's a city where maybe there's not quite the flood of continuous opportunity all the time, and maybe the infrastructure isn't quite here. So much of running this kind of business is about building your own infrastructure, and like
Yeah, for sure.
you really have to bootstrap it in a way. But I think that kind of calls back to that working hard,
Yeah.
really pushing yourself a little further and faster and harder than maybe you would if you were somewhere else where all of that infrastructure already exists, and then the process was
Yeah.
smoother. So it is kind of nice, I feel like, even from that perspective, to have to push a little harder here, have to work a little harder.
Yeah.
You moved to Dallas.
Yeah.
You're gonna keep your brand going,
Yeah.
really get it off the ground here. What is it that you're looking for? Like, what's step one in getting your fashion brand functioning?
The brand really took on its identity out here. I didn't really know how I was going to continue it. Just like, what's manufacturing look like out here? Can I manufacture out here? What's the fashion industry like? But, it was such in a time of this DIY zeitgeist, is how I started my brand, even in LA. And I was just like, I'm just going to make things. And I knew I just want to tell stories. There's certain stories I want to tell. And it started a lot with me starting to get really inspired by Dallas, by the land, and just like the culture here, and even like the Southern culture, the Western culture, and just like the workwear culture. And further infusing that into my brand, into the denim that I was doing, this like upcycled denim that I was working with. It just started with like posting on social media. It started with meeting people around town, me exposing the brand to people out here. And I was like, I just knew I just want people to know about it. And I knew eventually I wanted to start selling stuff. And it was a lot of like, we're talking about just like bootstrapping and doing pop-ups, out of our apartment. And my biggest thing, like the first few years I was out here, was really investing into meeting people. I was like, I just need to know people. I want to know people. And that's where I started. And then from there was just like, okay, I have places for, small little audience for my pieces to be seen by. And let me just start there and see how that grows.
I love that. And then manufacturing wise, I know LA is like, it's pretty famous. You can find great seamstresses there. You can find great shops there to build and actually construct the design. If you're starting that on your own, like you're kind of doing this by hand
Yeah.
in the beginning, where's the brand now? Do you have a place, like a custom studio for yourself? How does that operate?
Yeah. So I do any manufacturing I still do back in LA. I've been trying to find just a great relationship out here with denim, but just the fact of the nature is no one really does denim out here. And there's ways that I do it where there's usually a bunch of different machines you construct it on. I do it in a way where I construct it on one machine it's really time consuming. And if someone were to do it just on one machine, it would be really expensive. Um, so I haven't found something yet that makes sense for me to do manufacturing out here. And I'm hoping one day I can, and everything can be done in Texas, even like, any dye houses or wash houses or things like that. But right now, any like manufacturing I do is out in LA. I work with a business out there, manufacturer out there. And I still do a lot of one and custom pieces. I sew it myself. So I'm doing that in-house. And that's something that I always hope to continue in the brand is as it grows and I'm doing scaling more and using dead stock denim, dead stock rolls of denim to be able to produce more. I still am continuing like the one-of-one process and collecting these upcycled fabrics that I started my brand with and still making one-of-one pieces and unique things for people and having that still be part of the business where I can still get behind a sewing machine and sew some stuff for some people.
What's the creative process like for you? So when you have an idea of something in your mind and you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna make that." How does that process go? So like, how do you know when you have a good idea?
Hmm.
And when you take that step, are you hand building it first or is your shop doing it?
Yeah, it looks different for me in different ways. Sometimes it does start with a story. Either it's like this revelation I just had or like something unique about my life. I think a lot of inspiration I pull from myself. I think, a lot of the stories we can tell, the best stories we can tell are our own. And I pull a lot from my like Filipino American upbringing, and using things in my culture as reference points, as points of inspiration. But even stories of how I grew up, I'm like, sports was a big part of my life. Like baseball was my main sport I played growing up. And like, I remember one of the first pieces I created, like I wanted to tell this story about me being a baseball player. Um, and I'm like, how would I convey that in a piece? And I'm like, I love a jersey. I think jerseys are really cool. And like, what would a baseball jersey look like to me? But not even really read as a baseball jersey, but just bringing reference points in. And so I would think about that, and a baseball jersey gave me something that I continue into all my designs is like rounded corners, just like on a baseball jersey, like how it overlaps, like the top part here is like it's always rounded, like, and I was like, I really love a rounded edge. All corners in my designs are all rounded now, and it came from thinking about a baseball jersey. Um, but it was just like, yeah, how do I take that? How do I put it in a silhouette that I want to see? How do I make it modern? How to make it unique? And just kind of like bringing those worlds together, and just wanting people to experience something with them when they wear it, and also just figuring out the right way to tell the story, even through copy when I'm posting it on Instagram or I put it on my website, or like, how do I poetically, you know, tell this story to where people might not understand the story when they first see it, but after they hear it, they're like, oh, all this, how you design this makes complete sense now. So yeah, sometimes it starts with a story, sometimes it starts with an idea. Other times it starts with a feeling, like we were talking about earlier. Like, I want to feel this way. I want people to feel this way too when they wear a piece. And how does that look? And then from there, everything I work with is denim. So it's like, how do I translate that even through the fabric of denim? And there's a lot that you can do with denim, like depending on the weight of it. You can go really heavy, or there's really extremely lightweight denim that can drape, that has a lot of movement to it. So finding the right denim that I have access to, even the right color to tell those stories or to convey that message, or to convey that functionality.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then why denim?
I worked in the denim industry in LA before moving out here to Dallas. I was working as a denim designer, and I always loved denim, but it was through that job that I really fell in love with denim. I had my boss who still I work with, and he's been a mentor of mine. He's always worked in denim, and he's kind of like this denim guru, like did a lot with denim in like the early 2000s and things like that. Worked for a bunch of really big brands and developed a lot for them. And he just spoke so poetically about it. And I was like, whoa, like, you really love this. And it led me to really fall in love with the fabric too. Cause he's like, you can do a lot with it. And it was like most people think about denim and they just think about a 5-pocket jean or a trucker jacket. And most people have those and multiple of it in their closet. But it's like, no, there's so much more that you can do with the fabric and it can be presented in a lot of different ways. And from there, I was like, oh, I want to present this fabric in ways that people aren't really used to seeing, but still in a very wearable and functional way. Like my design mantra is different yet familiar. And I want people to experience something different, but that's not like super avant-garde. That's like, this is like a costume or just like a piece of art that you just look at. But I want it to feel like something that they can step into that takes them a little bit outside of their box. If it's something that they're wanting to dive more into fashion, or people who really are into fashion, it's easily incorporated into their wardrobe. But I just fell in love with the fabric. And then I also had access to all this fabric when I was out there working directly in the factories, working with the wash house and the manufacturer. Like I found these discarded fabrics, like they're called wash tests or shrink blankets. It's like a yard to 2 yards of fabric that everyone will test their roll of denim because they wash it like, your jeans that you're wearing was washed in that certain wash. And however many rolls of denim they had to make your jeans, they have to test every single roll and wash it in this kind of vintage wash to get this grayish charcoal wash in it.
Mm-hmm.
And they need to know how much the fabric shrinks in the wash so that the pattern maker knows how much bigger to make the jean in the raw form. So when they wash it, it shrinks to the correct size. So all that is for the production process. And after production, these wash tests are discarded. Like they're no longer used. They don't need them anymore. But it's still perfectly good fabric. And has some markings on it for them to know the shrinkage of it. But it's really, really great fabric, and it's already washed, and it's just like ready to be used for something. The brand I was working for, the factory that they were working in, there was a whole other warehouse just full of these bags and bags of just wash tests. And it was like a high-end factory. They were manufacturing for a lot of high-end brands like Tom Ford and like Calvin Klein and things like that. So it was all this like American, Japanese, Italian denim. So it was just like falling in love with the fabric, having access to it. And I was just like, let me create with this. Like I wanted to start making pieces on my own. I was like, I have all this stuff here. Like I can just use it. It's just like what I had access to. And then the discipline of art of like picking a medium, and just sometimes if you have endless resources, it can be overwhelming. Even thinking of when I wanted to start my line, I was like, what are the fabrics do I choose? What are the colors? Like all this stuff, it was like a lot. But if you can just narrow in, it's just like, what if all I did was denim? How much could I create with just this fabric? What are the possibilities? And when you just, as a creative, when you're able to just narrow in into something, I think it really opens up a lot more creativity to be like, okay, like this is the challenge. And like every artist works within restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
You work within a certain canvas that you're painting, where you work with certain paints. And it's like, if you're only using this, what can you do with what you have? So that's how I started to treat denim. It's like, this is what I have. What's absolutely everything you can do within this box? And it seems like it's endless. That's just also the creative practice of creating and designing. And like creatives, I think we thrive within structure. I think a lot of times people are like, oh, artists are really lofty and all over the place. And I'm like, yes, but also I think the best comes out of us when we have those things to funnel through this structure. And it really helps us get our ideas out.
Deadlines are an amazing thing for an artist. And limitations, I mean, the material limitations, I think it's such a great perspective because it's so true that within limitations, within restrictions, that's where a lot of the really great creative problem solving takes place.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is kind of amazing that you focused on denim. And not only that, the vision to see opportunity. So when you walk into a warehouse of a bunch of wash fabrics,
Yeah.
If all they're seeing is a wash test stored away in a bag somewhere, but you walk into that same warehouse and what you see is opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I think that really is a different switch that people can have when it comes to that creative thinking cycle of always being a little more open, always being
Yeah,
ready to spot opportunity or a creative opportunity where it might be. And
for
that
sure.
curiosity of like, hey, this is a bunch of pre-washed fabric. What could I do with it?
Yeah.
What could I really make out of it? So I think that's kind of amazing that you do that. I mean, also the sustainability factor of it, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Just using pre-washed fabric, using denim, then upcycling it instead
Yeah.
of always purchasing
Yeah.
new material.
You know, it was something of importance to me, but I wasn't trying to, how do I do a sustainable brand? I
Mhm.
was like, oh, I have this. And it's like a good sustainable practice to be
Mhm.
able to do. I was like, man, this is pretty amazing. But yeah, I love what you were saying. I think if we're just remain open to finding beauty in things and for it to find us and just like we can recognize those moments,
Mhm.
and just staying open to it because that very much could have gone over my head if I was just like not in just a creative space or just like open to curiosity and wonder. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah. I'm interested too to know more about the creative process when it gets down to the nitty-gritty
Yeah.
of how you create something. When you have an idea and you start to move to the testing phase, are you hand drawing ideas early on? Do you have like an iPad that you use like a Procreate on, or do you do it pencil and paper?
Mhm.
Or do you go right to cutting, sewing, that kind of thing?
Yeah. A lot of times I go right to cutting and sewing, mainly because I'm so bad at drawing. But if I do have some sort of idea and I'm somewhere and I was like, oh, I like this idea, I'll sketch it down. If I have something I can draw with, or if it's just on my phone and I just like sketch out this idea and just type out what the idea is just to get it down. A lot of times I have the idea in my head and then I'll just go to making it.
Hmm.
And then if I want to put it into production, then I know I was like, okay, I need a sketch of this. I need this technical packet, is what we call it, the blueprints of constructing a garment that I need to send to the manufacturer so they know exactly what to do.
Hmm.
And then from there, I'll sketch on like Adobe Illustrator. That's where I do all like my technical flat sketches to get just the blueprint of the garment out. Um, but other than that, I'll do creative exercises where I will like, give myself a prompt and like sketch it out. And I'm not really concerned with how it looks, but just like practicing um, creative ideas. But yeah, a lot of times I'll just go to start drafting a pattern, and then start cutting and sewing and seeing how it works out, and then just like wear testing it, garnering some feedback from some people, some friends, and just seeing how people like it, and yeah, and just tweaking things from there.
Once you have the thing and it's ready, you've got the flat sketches out, you're manufacturing this thing. Are your styles in store anywhere? Is your brand in store anywhere? Or is it solely online and through digital?
Yeah, right now it's solely online. I've had some retailers around town that I've, you know, past seasons they've carried some pieces. I've had some pop-ups and some stores around town. I'm actually moving into diving into more wholesale. I'll be in New York doing my first trade show. Um,
Cool.
so, and that's going to be like the biggest way to get into different stores and boutiques. Yeah, that's like exciting thing that's coming up is doing my first trade show.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. And in a trade show, so how does that part of the fashion industry work? So you go as a designer
Mm-hmm.
and you have probably some product with you for people
Mm-hmm.
to look at, touch, feel, try
Mm-hmm.
on, whatever that is. Who is it that's walking around looking to buy from you, the designer?
I mean, it's like a wholesale show, so it's buyers from different shops. It could be shops as big as like Nordstrom's or Neiman Marcus, like those are what they call major stores, to small independent boutiques that could be just like a local store,
Hmm.
or like my favorite stores are independently owned boutiques. I think those culturally are the ones really driving the narrative in what is happening in fashion and in trends. And those are the people walking around, people looking to fill their stores with clothes, and they're buying for. So the one I'm showing for is for spring summer 26. So they're all buying for a year from now, um, which is always like a trip in this world. Everything is functioning years ahead.
Right.
You're always in the future, but also it's open to the public as well. So if people want to come and check out brands and see what they're doing, so I think maybe some booths will have stuff for people to purchase, but mostly it's just for discovery, and to check things out and to see what's coming. There's some really great brands there that have been around for a while, so it's a chance for people to see like what one of their favorite brands is up to, and getting to meet people behind the brands, if it's like the designer or sales reps that are there. But yeah, it's a huge part of the industry. If you're buying anything in the store, 9 times out of 10, that product got in there through a trade show.
When I think about that aspect of it, and you kind of mentioning that the smaller shops are really those smaller boutiques are kind of driving what's next, or always kind of driving forward and pushing things forward. Do you feel like that's because they develop relationships early on with designers like yourself
Mhm.
before the major stores catch on and pick up on that stuff?
Yeah, yeah, I think especially if they're independently owned and they don't have like a board or investors or things to answer to, they can
Mm.
kind of do whatever they want. And it's a lot of times, I think, when you're shopping at these boutiques, you are shopping the taste of the owners, and they're really getting to curate this experience of what they believe is in good taste. And so they're experimenting with new brands, or they're finding these kind of smaller or obscure brands that a lot of people don't know of, and they're exposing them to their customer base. And a lot of times it's like, there's different shops that bring certain types of brands. And if like, you're wanting to dress a certain way, maybe you shop at this boutique, or, a different boutique. Um, and a lot of like the major stores, they're usually just trying to capitalize on what's moving forward in the market. A lot of times these major stores aren't taking risks on small little brands, but sometimes they will. Sometimes there's a new guard coming into big places that are like seeing some smaller brands, and like place a small order with things, but usually that's coming from these smaller boutiques around the country, around the world. And those are the most exciting things for me, to hoping my brand will be able to get into some of my favorite boutiques, because I'm like, those are the places I love to shop. Those are the places I love to discover new brands, because it's also a place of, the expectation is also like, come into these shops, also like the physical experience of going into a store. The physical retail experience, I think, is unmatched, even though most of us today, we shop online. Going into a store and being able to touch clothing and like discover new brands, I think is such a fun part of fashion, because there's so much going on. And just to the discovery part, I think is something that is so unique and makes going into a store really fun if you're wanting to go in there to discover something new. And like these shop owners they can tell you about it. Like, they've met with these brands. They've learned about these brands. They've shopped the brand either from directly from them or from a trade show. And it's a place to learn, I think. Like great boutiques, it's a place to learn and discover. And I love that. And I hope, as we were talking about like AI and stuff like that, and even e-com, and mostly we're shopping online, I think there's always going to be physical retail at some capacity. It might not be the main way people shop anymore, but I think there's people always going to need a break from shopping online. Is like, I just want to be in a physical store.
And for you, what are the items that you typically design? So if I were to log onto your website,
Mm.
start shopping through some things, just run me through kind of the sort of staples that are kind of always there.
I mean, it started with jackets for me. So you always find jackets on there. I love jackets. In the past recent years, diving into just bottoms, like what my jeans are in like different silhouettes and pants, and then getting into shirting, overshirts, and then I have newer stuff that I'm developing where it's just like lighter weight shirting, and then more accessory type pieces like vests. diving more into. And then now I'm developing my first hat, so accessories, and then there's a bag I'm developing. So I'm wanting to do, you know, a broader range of things, but you can always count on jackets being there. I love jackets.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I love this vest that you're wearing. Is
Thanks,
this,
man.
yeah, this is a recent one, or is this something that's you've had out before?
Yeah, this is a new one. I mean, it's a take on my saddle pocket jacket. It's just like the same saddle pockets, but just on a vest. And this is new. I just made this the other day. Just like a dual zip, re-zip, and just something simple. I just designed it to be really minimal. Even there's not really any top stitching on this other than the pockets. There's no top stitching, so just kind of like really just like clean take on a vest. And especially during the summertime, it's hard to, I feel like it's usually the hardest time for people to really be excited about what they're wearing, because you can only wear so much, especially here when it's so hot and can get really humid. But I think a vest is a great way to accessorize an outfit in this hot weather. And I feel like it really elevates an outfit, and for me, it's like trying to capture that feeling of like, how do I feel more confident in what I'm wearing? For years, I've been wanting to create vests, and so the first vest I made was the Lola vest, the woven vest. And then I was like, I want to make an even more just kind of minimal, like everyday type of vest. And this is like the first iteration of it, and I've just been wear testing it, seeing how it feels, the functionality of it, the weight of it, and just see what people think about it. But yeah, I mean, just designing kind of core pieces is, I'm always building that. Like, what are the core things that I'll always have and always just kind of reiterate in different fabrics, different weights of denim, different colors. So,
That's exciting.
yeah, thanks, man.
There's something that you've mentioned a couple times that I think is so important about clothing, and it's something that I didn't pay a lot of attention to when I was younger. I was never really like a fashionable person.
Mm-hmm.
Never really thought about it, never considered it, or really woke up and thought through an outfit. I was always just reaching for something functional, throwing it on, and leaving.
Yeah.
And then I started hanging out with fashionable people, and when you're hanging out with fashionable people and you start to look in the mirror, you're like, oh, maybe I should step it up a little bit, you know? Especially when you work in a professional capacity.
Yeah.
You know, you want to look good, but there is a feel-good piece to that.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that I find so cool about clothing is and accessories. You know, I'm a jewelry guy, so I'm always going to have
See,
like
it's great.
chains, bracelets, rings.
Yeah.
But this stuff, you know, when you put it on, there is a sense of self that shifts
Mm-hmm.
a little bit. What do you think that is? Like, why is it when we're putting on these clothing, you know, like a vest like that, you put it on over just a simple black shirt or something? What is it about that vest that kind of turns you on, lights you up a little bit?
Yeah. I think there is this like connection that we have to tangible things. And I think there's certain things that can like speak to who we are. And I think the right clothes, the right jewelry should enhance who we already are. I think creatives and creativity, I think us as creatives, I think what we're really trying to be is master communicators and communicate a feeling, communicate emotions, communicate a message. And I think there's something when we put on clothing, when we put on jewelry, when we put on shoes, when we adorn ourselves with these things, when we connect to this feeling, when it's like, oh, this is it. Like, I think it brings words, it brings emotions, it brings a feeling that we had been searching for, or that like we didn't even know we were looking for, but it just all of a sudden just makes sense. Almost like singer-songwriters, poets, I think they create words for people who haven't found words for themselves yet. And that's when like we hear a song and like it resonates with us so much, because we're like, this is exactly how I've been feeling. I never had the words for it. They're singing exactly how I'm feeling. And people cry because it's like, it becomes a release. Like, finally, there's a release for something I've been feeling. And I think with clothes, with jewelry, when we put it on, it's like, I think there's like been a search for like something we want to feel. And I think we all want to feel confident. We all want to feel really good about ourselves. And it's like this quest to find it. And then like when we find it, it's a feeling, you know it. Someone doesn't have to tell you like, oh, you look great in that. It's like we feel it automatically. And then that's like this connection point with these things. And I think that's what all creatives and designers, especially people who are creating things for people to wear, want people to feel. They want that connection point because people are going to keep coming back for that. And that's like what businesses are like. People try to make businesses off of a good jacket, a good shirt, a good ring, a good necklace can really speak to the person who's already like wearing it. And I think we know when we've put on something that feels like a costume because we just don't feel like ourselves in it. Even though people are like, no, it's cool. It's the coolest thing. It's what's trendy. You got to wear it. Everyone's wearing it. But you just know, like, this just doesn't feel like me. So I think it's all like, we're all looking for that feeling.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, of course.
I think, yeah, you're doing amazing things, obviously, with clothing, with your brand.
Thank you.
I'm excited to see where it goes.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Our executive producers are myself and Jessica Kramer. Our producer is Giselle Saucedo. Our editor is Max Smith. Music by Creators. I'm your host, Roger Peters. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in.